1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Together.
And welcome back to the True Patriot podcast, folks. We have a special guest with us here on those list of like big names that we get a chance to go out there and chat with in the kayak fishing world. We have none other than Mr. Josh Diehl. Josh, welcome to the True Patriot Outfitters podcast, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having me today.
You bet. It is our honor. So you and I were just talking offline here, and I wanted to hit the record and get this thing flying. We're talking about, I came over from the boat world. I'm now in your world here in the kayak fishing, and you were just getting ready to tell me a really cool story about that. So let's talk about where you got your start, man, before you were out pedaling 900 miles in your Hobie.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So it's probably closer to $3,000 at the moment, but it's something. It's interesting for me because, I've been fishing my entire life. I've been fishing since I was a little kid. And, I remember sitting in front of the TV, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, watching Bassmaster and just watching the broadcast and going, I can do that. I can be out there with those guys and I can compete. And, I remember this conversation fondly because it's really the core behind my beginnings is that when I was 15 years old, I was sitting with my grandpa and, life was kind of in, I don't want to say disarray, but my parents were going through a divorce and life was changing. And grandpa looks at me and goes, son, he says, what do you want to do for a living? I said, I want to bass fish. And he laughs at me and he's like, not going to happen. And I was like, what do you mean not going to happen? And he says, you've watched those guys on TV. You've seen how good they are. And he says, you've seen what they've done. And he says, we were blue collar. We don't come from that lifestyle. We don't come from that opportunity space. And, I took that to heart. I never picked up a rod and reel with the intent to cash a check. I always picked up a rod and reel for fun. And throughout many days of just going out and fun fishing on the water, I sat there and dreamed of being a professional angler, and I would push myself to catch volumes of fish because I wanted to prove to myself that I could compete on that stage. And, there was a point in time where I was living in Maryland and, I was going out on days and catching 15, 20, 25 fish in a setting. And I was like, this is I'm starting to figure some things out. I'm really starting to dial some things in. And, for me, when we finally moved to Georgia, my wife and I moved to Georgia, I told her, I said, one of my dreams is getting in a bass boat. So I bought a bass boat, got settled into the local lake, only for it to whip my butt for about the first 3 to 6 months I was down here. This fishery, here was nothing like I had ever encountered or ever been accustomed to. And, it just kind of went along. And a buddy of mine at work, also former service member, he's like, hey, he says, you need to come out and fish. He said, it's a veterans group. We go fish a series of tournaments throughout the course of the year. He said, just fun tournaments. We're all retired military or, still current serving military. And he says, just get out, we have fun, we join ourselves. I said, dude, I don't tournament fish. I said, I appreciate the offer, but I don't tournament fish. And he goes, just come out. I said, fine. This was in the beginning of 2019. And I was like, yeah, fine. Okay, I'll come out. And I came out to the event and I fished with the club and I finished 5th in my first event. And while we were sitting at weigh-ins, I was realizing all these fish that I'd missed throughout the course of the day. I had a really bad day on the water. I struggled to get fish in the boat. I lost fish at the rail. Was one of those days where, probably a little bit of emotion, probably a little bit of a sense of, hey, I haven't done this before, setting in.
Right.
And I looked at myself at the end of that tournament and said, I can fix this. Well, I came back and won the next event and came back and won the next event and then finished second in the event after that and ended up taking the club's Angler of the Year without ever fishing their first event. I was like, okay, all right, there's something there. But in the middle of that same summer, I was like, a buddy of mine approached me and he said, you need to come out and kayak. I said, I've kayak fished a couple times, but I've never kayak fished. I had done a little bit of kayak fishing with Heroes on the Water in the Maryland chapter. And when I say a little, I mean, I think 2 or 3 events. I hadn't done a lot. It was prior to my transition down to Georgia. And he's like, you need to come out and fish with us. And in my first Georgia statewide event, I finished 8th.
Nice.
And then in my second Georgia statewide kayak event, I won. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm a little better at this fishing thing than I give myself credit to. I love to fish. I mean, I really do. And I put a lot of time and effort and passion into kind of figuring things out. And there's still a lot of things, yet left to learn. But later in that year, towards the end of that season, Bassmaster announced it was going to have its inaugural kayak season. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to, if I'm going to take this serious, if there was ever an opportunity to take the jump, to get my feet wet and to go, this was that opportunity space.
Nice.
And I had never fished a national trail event before. I had never been on big water with 150 or 200 anglers. My biggest tournament probably had 50 or 60 people in it at most. I was like, this is going to be interesting. And I looked at my wife and I think it was November, December time frame. I said, this kayak I got, I said, it ain't gonna cut it. I said, I'm doing my research and looking around and I see what these people are fishing in. And I was like, I'm going to go get a new Hobie PA14. And I said, I'm going to rig it up. And I said, we're going to put my sights on this season. We're going to let it happen. And so Bassmaster hosted its first event in 2020 in Pell City, Alabama, on Logan Martin Lake. The weather was terrible. The conditions were atrocious. And I want to say I finished 29th out of 244 in my first national trail event. And I earned my first paycheck from Bassmaster. I earned a championship qualification spot for the following year. And I was like, oh, I can do this.
That's awesome, man. Those
are the beginnings.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's everybody that you speak with in competitive fishing. I don't care whether it's boat or kayak or wherever, anyone that you speak with, when you start going back to where that's at, there was always that light bulb moment, right? I mean, let's face it. I've done a lot of podcasts in the early stages about the business side of our sport and how something needs to break if they truly do, want to build a future for these young anglers coming up. Then they need to, we need to get grip hold on the cost of doing business. There's just no question about it. Doesn't matter who you talk with, unless you're the upper 1%, the rest of us are out there scrounging away. And I mean, I had a chance to interview Matt Steffen, who's been around the game 12 years at the pro level. The guy's made over $500,000 in winnings, this and that. And he still to this date is doing these videos of when he's, showing the cost just to put gas in the boat in the truck. I mean, what the heck does that tell you? It was one of the reasons what moved us to the kayak side, but it's the one piece though that I do love is that there's that light bulb moment and there's that I call it bass fever. Hunters call it buck fever when they harvest, a big buck. Same thing happens for bass guys. It doesn't matter how big that bass is, to me, the moment I see a green or a smallie, it's on, man, and it just immediately starts to hit. So now, did I hear this right? So you got started with your fishing as a kid on the kind of the northern side of the U.S. and then moved down to Georgia, or?
So my family, I'm an Army brat.
Okay.
We're in the Army. My family has a long lineage of entering the service and going into the service. Most of my family members have retired from the service over the years.
Nice.
My dad included. And when I left for the service, I thought I was going to be in the service 20 years myself. And it didn't work out that way, but I can't say that it's been a bad life because my commitment to the service community has still existed throughout my professional career. And I still continue to serve my country just in different ways now.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to, as far as me, I mean, I always tell everybody, I grew up a lot of everywhere, but a whole lot of nowhere. Moved more times than I was old up until a handful of years ago. When we moved to Georgia and finally got settled in down here, and this has become home. Home is typically where I lay my head at night. But before that, I mean, Kentucky, I was actually born in the state of Georgia, Missouri, Ohio, Maryland, lived out of country in Panama for a little bit, just kind of gotten around and had that experience, exposure. Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona. I've seen a lot throughout the years and fished a lot of different waters throughout my career, but nothing like I fish now.
Right. It's a different bird.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I try to explain that to folks when they find out that this is what we do for a living. It's make no mistake, some of the best anglers I have ever come across and never met have never fished a single tournament day one in their life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you put them in a tournament and they'll struggle. It's a different animal. It's not just going out there and if it were that easy, well, then there'd be a lot more guys up there cashing checks, I think.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And
yeah.
Something you said for the level of work. I mean, I think about, my average 3 days of practice and tournament, I'll rack up somewhere between 75 and 100 miles on the Hobie. And I don't run a motor on my kayak. So I do all that pedaling. And so that takes some work. It takes some effort. And I don't think people realize that's the kind of work and effort that goes into this. I know that there's more and more kayaks showing up with motors on them. And I think to continue to be competitive and to make the most out of my practice, I'm going to have to evolve into that space. But for right now, I haven't made that jump. It is something lingering on my brain. And I'm also thinking about fishing the Opens, the Bassmaster Opens out of the Bass Boat next year as well.
Oh, no kidding.
It's one of those things where, like, if you want to chase, you got to chase. Like, if you want to chase the dream, you got to go after it. Yep. You can't lay back, because what's going to happen is, it kind of happened a little bit to me this year. The clock keeps turning and you keep getting older and you keep, it's just another year that going by that's like, okay, if I really want this, I need to go get it. And I need to put the time and the effort and the work. And the odds, I won't say the odds are stacked against me, but reality wise, I mean, look at gas prices right now. We're talking about putting gas in the boat, for instance. I mean, if I go out, I told my wife the other day, I said, every time I take the bass boat out, I'm probably looking at $100 gas bill
easy.
Right.
Yep.
And then God forbid that I go out and fish a tournament with even just a local pot tournament for 50 or $100 an entry. So now I'm in 200 to 250 bucks between fuel and entry fee just to go play for a Saturday.
Yep.
And I mean, that's relatively consistent. And, it takes work to stay on fish. And like, I live on a blueback herring lake, so our fish move pretty consistently. They move a lot because the bluebacks move a lot. It's not a traditional lake where I can just show up on Friday morning, kind of practice and locate some schools of fish and then know that they'll pretty much be there the next day.
Right.
But this lake here, it's made me a better angler. It's really tested me and challenged me, and I'm really fortunate to have it in my backyard because it's really changed my game and my outlook on bass fishing.
That's, and that's super important, man. That time on the water. We've been going through some struggles ourselves where we go out and practice. We feel pretty good about what we're finding. We gain our confidence because, the things that we think we're finding, we're actually confirming that we are finding these things. Then tournament day would show up and I was just, trash can, just a hot dumpster fire for whatever reason. I couldn't figure it out. Jody Queen reached out to me and gave me some of the best piece of advice. And that is TOW, man. It's time on the water. You just got to put more time in. And when I started looking at all the laundry list of things, that was the one thing that was still lacking, was not getting out there enough and just experiencing just time, with the equipment, time with the gear, time with myself, time with the different decision-making pieces. So we're hoping we're going to dial up, a lot of that. So when you have a good fishery that can challenge you like that close, man, it's that iron sharpens iron mentality.
Absolutely.
Before we get going too much further, I wanted to first and foremost thank you to you and your entire family for your service and for everything that you guys have done for us to make these type of things possible. We sincerely are indebted to you guys and appreciate everything you've done.
Well, I thank you for that, but I also felt like that was part of my obligation and responsibility back to my country. I mean, like I said, family lineage, it's just something that's been there my entire life. So
Well, and that's those are the things what drives us on the True Patriot side. I am not a veteran myself, but we are citizens out here, and I do consider myself a patriot to do what we can for the veteran community and try to give back in those areas. So, nevertheless, so you've had an opportunity, man. So right now you're fishing. Let's talk about the national trails you're fishing. You, of course, the Hobie Boss. Because you are part of Team Hobie, is that correct?
No, that's actually not something that's developed yet.
Gotcha.
That's something that I want to develop. That's something that I was going to come to fruition. But like with anything, I want to make sure that I earn my spot on that team when that time comes.
For what it's worth, for a guy on the outside and just a fan of the sport, you've absolutely earned it. Because I am a motor guy, Josh. All right, let's just be clear. I'm turning 50 this year, and the thought, when I hear and I read your articles about the miles, bro, that you put down, I get tired. My legs start cramping up. And I'm thinking, this guy is an absolute Hobie Mirage Drive commercial waiting to happen out here. I mean, that was one of the big things for those of you out there that don't realize this. One of the big transition pieces from boat to kayak is that normally you don't get to fish as much water at a given body of lake. Because if I go into a cove and I start fishing something and I don't like it in my boat, man, I drop the Merc down and I'm gone. I'm 20 miles up the deal. In a kayak, I got to sit there and go, okay, what the hell am I doing wrong? Because I banked on this. Now they've got to be here. So where are they? But you, sir, I have seen you pedal up and you start fishing your way out. Next thing you know, you're 10 miles the other direction out of this thing. That's nuts, man. That is a lot of water to cover with a pedal system.
It is. And the other thing that comes to mind with that is speed. The speed that I can maintain on that pedal drive. When I put them to the wickets, Hobie knows how much I put the drives to the wickets. I get that speed. I get that kayak up to 4.5 to 5 miles an hour sustained on the pedals, and I can hold it for 2 to 3 miles straight. And so when I think about making moves, like I'm going to pick on Eufaula from 2020. When we were at Eufaula, I had a spot that I wanted to start at, and I started there, but I had a spot that I wanted to finish at that was 8 miles away. And I was like, okay, I've got to make leaps and I got to jump my zones. And I got to go from this section that I want to work to this bite that I want to work to that bite I want to work. And then if all else fails, I need to be at the top, because if I need to finish a limit or the fishing's tough or whatnot, I need to be able to make that transition. And so to be able to put my head down and say, okay, if I can go 4.5 miles an hour, I can average about a 13-minute mile in the Hobie, which means that I can move about 4.5 miles in an hour. So let's go do it. And I have set myself up to do that on numerous events, on numerous occasions. Sometimes that's with the wind in my face, water coming over the front of the boat. Sometimes that's with tailwinds, getting that little extra speed. I'll never forget Pickwick. The morning of Pickwick last year, I was doing 5.5 heading down to my first spot. I was just calling because I knew where I wanted to be. And it paid off with the trophy that's sitting in the corner, but that's that.
Dude, that speed that I'm getting out of with my 24 volt drive on the back of my yak, man, I'll sustain about 4.5. And I think the other thing that people need to realize here, this is one of the reasons why I love following you, is because you represent us so very well. You're a big dude. You're not one of these, jockeys running around out here. You're what, 6'4"?
I am 6'7", 300 pounds.
6'7", 300 pounds. Good night. Okay, so I'm a midget at 6'1", 240. And people don't realize what that does in a kayak. There is a massive difference there compared to a guy that's 5'9", 160 pounds. When we watch, bless her heart, when I watch Kristen Fisher out there, and she talks about the stability of the kayak. Well, yeah, dear. They are. We know that. But at the same time, the reason you don't move it is because you're like a $120 soaking wet.
That's right. She can stand on the front of her kayak I cannot.
Exactly. Same kayak too.
Same kayak, exact same kayak. She can stand on the front. I cannot.
Exactly. It's let's keeping it realistic. So that's what's most impressive, dude, is that you are moving some serious gravity around out there at a clip. And so yeah, that's we looked at the pedal system, so on and so forth, and I'm very pleased with the pivot drive from New Canoe that we're running, but I don't run that much, to be honest with you. I am now I'm waiting on the delivery. It's inbound, my bow mount, because I've been experimenting since we're still very new. I've been experimenting, and I'm almost hands free with the fishing and still able to use the motor. And when we get the bow mount in with the foot pedal, it's just going to be a matter of where I place that foot pedal, but I will be completely hands-free. And that's, for me, finding that common ground between I got so embedded in my head on the deck of my boat that one of the things that really gets me out there in the kayak was having between the paddle or the throttle or in the steering and a fishing rod and trying to maintain contact. And it just started, for an old guy like me, the anxiety started kicking on. I'm like, okay, I'm not having as much fun. So what do I need to do to make this more fun?
Streamlining is critical. I mean, I can't speak highly enough about that. Like, streamlining is everything. Like, I've hopped in some other boats to test some other boats, and there's a reason why I'm running in a Hobie.
Yep.
Like, I have found my comfort level with it, what I like, how it comes together, where my gear sets, how much I can carry, the whole design. And it's just like, and you get that feeling of comfortability. And once you get there, you're kind of locked into that brand. I mean, it just becomes it, because look, I mean, I can set rods and reels beside me and not have to worry about kicking them over the side of the boat.
Wow.
I mean, I can have, and I usually have 8 to 10 rods behind me anyways, but, when I'm fishing an event, I'll have 2 or 3, laying up on top of the deck, but they can relax and rest and don't have to worry about knocking them overboard.
That's impressive. Yeah.
I've been fortunate, knock on wood here, that I have only put 1 rod reel overboard, and I had the line in my hand, so it didn't matter.
Oh, wow.
So I have not lost a rod and reel to the elements yet in 3 years. I've been happy about that. And hopefully it'll stay that way. I try to keep myself, I try to keep everything in check. As an angler, you get sidetracked, things happen, you make mistakes. It's part of the game, and you have to be able to deal with that. You mentioned, Jody was talking about that time on water piece.
Yeah.
I want to echo that sentiment a little bit, because I think there's a time on water piece that comes to it, but there's something else that I try to focus on when I fish these events, and it's called slowing time down. And it's weird, because I always come back to the ramp and I hear all these anglers, and they're like, man, time flew. And I'm like, no, time didn't fly. Time was as fast as it was every other day of the week. I said, but you get locked into that rush, you get that adrenaline pumping, and you stop controlling yourself, and you forget to relax and just own the clock. There's only one time in my fishing career where I have wanted the clock to move super, super fast. And trust me, it didn't. I felt like it moved even slower, but it was worth every minute of it. All in all, slowing time down is so critical to me, because that's one of those places where mind over matter. It's only when you have a grind event, you only have to catch 5 fish. And it sounds easy, but it can also be super difficult. And, when the elites are struggling, what do? They put themselves on a clock. I need 1 fish an hour. That's it. Get me 1 fish an hour. Let's make it go. And that's what we do. And that's what I do. I mean, that's what I did at Chickamauga this last event, 1 fish an hour, keep the grind on. I know that I've got bigger fish here, but I know I have to mine them out. And so it's going to be slow. It's going to be tempered. And I just have to be patient with it.
Yep.
Can't get frustrated. Can't let the clock worry me. Just know that I have enough time. And then always remember that lightning can strike at any moment. It's the reason why I keep bolts on my jersey. And that's a personal reminder to me that no matter what happens, you need 15 minutes to catch, photo, release 5 fish. That's it.
Nice.
And as long as you keep that in mind, if you're in the hunt, 15 minutes can change your entire day, change your entire week, change your entire event, and be the difference in you bringing home a trophy or not. And
that's the truth.
As long as you keep that, keep your head on straight, keep your head in the game, it's going to help separate you, because a lot of anglers, they get bogged down by it. I've been there. I've gotten bogged down. Everything's going wrong. I fished a tournament with a buddy out of the bass boat the other day, and everything on the front deck was on fire. I swear. I had things tangled up. I was running into things. I was getting snagged. And I looked at my buddy, and I swear to you not, I looked back and I said, you just keep effing catching fish back there. And I said, I will get this figured out. And then I looked at him a little later in the day, and I said, I'm going to cull every single one of your fish. And I did. And it's like, it was like, I had to get my stuff together. I had to get like everything under control and get back to norm, because we started out, it was foggy. But the day is not going right, and all of that can unravel everything. And you got to bring it all back in, get it all back under control, and know that, hey, that's the past. Focus on right now, catch that next fish, and keep it moving forward. Do what you know how to do.
That mental aspect, that's amazing and phenomenal coupled advice to go with that, man. And thank you so much for that. And that is so drilled and seated in wisdom. Going back, I've had, equal tournaments where we felt we had a phenomenal practice. Things were, exactly setting up the way we wanted. We start the day, and the first piece we cast out, for whatever reason, the Ned decides to find the first rocket can and lock in there, and bang, we're snapping off. So now we've got, one rod down. And for those that are unaware of, retying, on the boat is like the last thing that you want to do, unless you're on a, if you don't have other options. That's why we carried 30 rods in the boat with us. It's so we don't have to retie. I moved to the next rod that's got the next, same bait tied up on it, but yeah, we've had those days where just nothing seemed to want to go right in the beginning. And laughing about it and calming your brain down and refocusing, going back, so huge to try to salvage, those results. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there is one staple that I take away from that, and something that sits in my brain regularly. And that's, I don't know where I got it from, but it was a KVD moment. And, Kevin Van Dam was, I guess, on the boat, and he was throwing a trap into some grass, and he was fishing an area, and he hooked a fish, and it came off on the way to the boat, 4 or 5 pounder, threw back out, hooked again. Fish came off on the way to the boat, did it a third time. Same thing happens. He looks at the cameraman and says, I know what they're eating. And he goes back. And it's like, exactly. He's absolutely right. I know what they're eating. Just keep doing it and let it work itself out. And
right.
And you have to. And that's
and
hard.
Sharpen your hooks.
That's right. I've watched 5 and 6 pound fish come off the boat, come off at critical moments. And it's like, it's heartbreaking. It's like, no. There's still 2 hours left on the clock. Get back in there.
Yeah.
Like, you're not done. You're not allowed to quit. You're not allowed to roll over. You're not allowed to cash it in. And if you finish in 8th place, you finish in 8th place. Who cares? Like, you
right.
Come out and you left it all on the table, and you can't hang your head about that.
Well, this sport has, it's one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given is, as much as you want it to be a science, it's not. It's an art form. And, you can have a lot of logic built in science, but at the same time, every time you think you've got, there's no constants, that are out there. It's when you think you got it figured out, Mother Nature will slap you in the head and go, hey, guess what? We're going to do something different today.
Clarksville is a constant reminder of that on a daily.
Hartselle is?
Clarksville, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my local lake. If you think you've got it figured out, like if you caught 17 pounds in practice like I did the other day, you might as well not show up to fish the tournament, because they're gone. You won't be there. Like, you won't be able to find them. Look, I contemplated fishing a tournament this past Saturday. I put up 17 pounds in practice on one hump on Friday. And Saturday morning, I was like, I'm going fun fishing, because I know that I'm going to have to re-chase them, because they will have made a significant move. I think we had 11 pounds on Saturday. And
right.
It wouldn't be competitive. 20 pounds won the event.
Right. Yeah, that's it's the that constant changing, ever evolving piece is one of the things. The grind is what I fell in love with the sport. When it was, when I was first starting off with it, I knew I had it bad when the early morning and the maintenance on the gear, the practice, the time, everything going into it, it didn't bother me. I actually looked forward to the grind. I wanted that, that feeling there to go out for just a chance to put it on display, on one given day and see what comes out of it. But yeah, finding the good in there, that is, you try to, build your confidence from that piece, because confidence to me is just so critical. It's why we end up going back to the same 2-3 baits every damn time, because it's what catches fish, in a given area. But
I told mine the other day, I was like, look, I said, you need to go out in your boat, and I said, you need to dork around. I said, you need to take a day, and you need to be okay with going out and catching nothing. I said, you need to pick up a series of baits you've never picked up before. You need to run a technique or a pattern you've never done, and you need to execute it. And then come back at the end of the day and reflect on, hey, this is what I did. As an example, I don't typically crank on Clark's Hill. I don't typically crank humps on Clark's Hill. But on Friday, I intentionally went out. I picked up a crankbait. I did nothing but target humps, and I had a big old goose egg. And then I rolled up to a hump and set up on it, and like fireworks. And
wow.
It's one of those moments that, like, even if it doesn't happen the next day the same way, it gives you an extra boost of confidence in that bait or that technique or that approach. And you have to do that, whether it's a drop shot, whether it's a crankbait, whether it's a jig, it doesn't matter. You have to take a day, you need to pick it up, you need to go dork around with it and not care if you don't catch fish.
Right.
And learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through a series where I actually I learned this lesson the hard way. During my practice time for some of these bodies of water, I would try different patterns and techniques to see if I could discover something. That was what I was telling myself. The problem was I wasn't learning what I needed to learn in practice. I wasn't learning the body of water the way I should have. So I was using that time improperly. But then we started, again, it goes back to that. You need additional time outside of practice to just go do that, to try a different. My finesse game is garbage, and it's not because I don't know how to tie a drop shot. It's not that I don't know how to use a Ned rig. I know how to use these techniques very, efficiently. I just don't like to at all. It is the most boring kind of fishing to me. Yep. I want to be cranking. I want to be, slow rolling something. I'd rather be dragging a Carolina rig than, hopping with my egg beater in my hand, hopping around a drop shot all day long. And unfortunately, I live in a section of the country where you better learn how to drop shot and Ned rig, or you're just not going to catch a whole lot of, fish otherwise than that. So because of Zoom and its awesomeness, now they limit us on our time here. So we're going to have the Zoom calls going to drop, but then we'll restart right back up. So literally I'll send you another invite right back after that. And then we'll just put this together in between, because it says it's got less than a minute to go, but there's more I wanted to cover with you, man. This is going well. So folks, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back to the True Patriot Outfitters podcast. And welcome back, folks. Here we got our Zoom issues figured out, so we're going to keep moving. Sooner or later, I won't be a cheapskate, and I'll upgrade to Pro so I can go over 40 minutes. But I believe in cutting the budget every place I can. So, all right. So we've got the Hobie Boss series. You're fishing that complete schedule. Is that right? That's
actually I wish I could fish that complete schedule. Look, if I could fish every national trail event between Hobie and Bass, I would. I'm fishing the entire Bassmaster circuit.
Right.
I've already told John Stewart and company, like, I committed to Bassmaster because they gave me my start. They got me in the hunt, and they got me in the fire, right. and I'm committed to seeing that grow and watching that develop and how that unfolds. And Hobie, I won't forget, AJ McWhorter called me and go, hey man, we built this circuit for guys like you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, and I plan to get out there more. You're going to see more of me. I got to figure out how to feather it into my schedule.
Right.
Similar to kind of what we were talking about offline before we started, the history of how it starts, really like my career is one big sponsorship from me fishing every national trail event, and when I say one big sponsorship, I'm not talking like anything stupid crazy, but it's one big sponsorship from me getting out there and being able to go to every national trail event and make everything swing. Because that's what it takes. Like, I mean, you need that little bit of help. I mean, I'm going to go out and I'm going to place and I'm going to cash checks and I'm going to be able to execute that piece. But right now, like, I take a lot of that on my own hide, and the sponsors that I do have, I'm super grateful for what they bring to the table. And I just try to make sure that I give it back to them in return.
Well, I'll tell you, man, you are one of those guys that is always in the hunt. Everywhere you go, you are fishing competitive out there. And that is, at the end of the day, that is what, the sponsorship pieces, they're looking for, is they want to know that they're being represented properly and that they're relevant. They remain relevant in conversation. And how that happens is those guys like you that are out there that are staying competitive no matter what type of water you're fishing, whether you're down south, up north, doesn't matter. So, I'll openly admit I left bass for the FLW and the MLF just because of opportunity. There was more chance to fish against bigger fields, bigger paychecks, and I could fish around the country, regionally a little bit easier with those organizations. And then as I started noticing the kayak game was exploding, seeing Bass's name around the kayak side there, I was actually thoroughly excited that I was able this year. I renewed my Bass membership for the first time in many years because I joined our local Bass club here. We're going to have a chance to qualify through the state. And next year, I too am planning to get an opportunity to go out there and have you beat up on me as one of the rookies out there on the Bass scene. And that's, I think, what other people don't realize is one nice thing about kayak is that in the kayak competition, there'll be 7, 8, 9, 10 events, but Angler of the Year goes off of your best 4 or 5. Yep. So it makes it more flexible for those of us, to kind of pick and choose, because, man, it was getting to the point that it didn't, even at a BFL level, which is a regional level with the MLF. Each one of my events was just over $1,000 for me to travel, to get there, to compete. Put a little bit of food in my face, and get out of there. It was, just over $1,000. Now, if I was doing the math here with the gas prices, it's probably, $1,400 at a minimum just to go to an event, so, and you had to fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You had to fish all 5 or, you wouldn't, most of the places that I went to out there, I can tell you, I was in the Ozark division there for a while. There's some serious hooks in those divisions, man. And you 0 on 1 or have 1 fish on 1 event, you're done. You've got no shot at that gig, other than maybe you'll have an opportunity for, making the regional, so to speak. That's pretty much, the best that you're gonna swing there. So
I think this, for me, is a perfect example of that, because I'm currently sitting in 4th in the Bassmaster AOI. And I've had a good year. I can't say that I had a great year. I had a better season last year. My year last year was incredible last year. It'd be a different story to put the two of them together. But this year, it's been good. It hasn't been, I won't say it's been great. I feel like I've got more in the tank. I just haven't been able to get it to come forward.
Right.
And, I got an event left on it, but I can't win AOI and Bassmaster this year. I'm in the hunt. But I mean, those guys, they're on fire at the moment. Like, they are fishing they're fishing lights out of their mind. Siddiqui is the perfect example of that. I mean, that man is just on fire this year.
Yeah.
And he's just bouncing from event to event to event, and he just keeping it turning. And that's one thing. I mean, I still work a 40-hour week back home, and still contribute back to, making sure that I put enough time into my family and then into my fishing and just remain competitive. I don't know how different it would be if I could travel, and practice for 3, 5, 6 days for an event and prep and just kind of move from event to event. I think it would be different. I think that what you would see out of me would improve. But I'm very happy with what I've done so far with my limited schedule. And, I've fished this year alone. I fished 9 national trail events this year already, and I have 1 left.
Wow.
Maybe 2 if I choose to squeeze 1 in.
Right. Well, and maintaining a full-time job to boot, man, that is no small feat. That is incredible. If you don't mind me asking, what do you do? What gets in the way of fishing?
I'll say cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is the best way to paint that picture.
Nice.
On the perks, I'm not running around and getting all physically exhausted. What I'm doing is, at the keyboard, and
flying a keyboard. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's what I do, cybersecurity. So
nice. 23 years in the IT industry myself, and I got thoroughly burnt enough to the point that I knew I wanted to go fishing and do this work more than I wanted to go back. So I still may have to grow up. Who knows? If this doesn't work out, if we don't find our flugel binder in there somewhere, we may have to go back and play in the IT world again. But
it's been really good to me.
That's awesome. So speaking on the sponsor side, the reason you ended up on my radar is multiple reasons full, but what brought you quickly was 5x3. They are one of your current sponsors right now. Is that correct?
They are.
Yep.
It's been a privilege to be with them. Great group of guys. I'm so glad that they brought the brand and brought it here to the local area, and they are totally committed and invested in it. I can't speak highly of them enough. They're amazing people. I love working with them.
You and Doug Chapin both had said that when Doug gave me, put his name behind it, it got my attention because I was, part of the past history as far as watching it unfold. I was never the first 5x3 gear I've ever purchased has now been since these new owners took over. I never bought it back in those days, but I always loved the motto. I love the philosophy piece because it represents obviously what we do every day. Who else is on the list of your current sponsors that are helping you with this right now?
So my current sponsors consist of 5x3, as we've already talked. I have Summerland Outdoors out of Columbus, Georgia. That's a partnership that I picked up at the beginning of this year. I've been really happy to have them on board. Just a great opportunity to kind of help in their market space, but also, help me out with some of the things that I need. I work with Socks and Cookies. That's more of a charitable sponsorship more than there's anything. I think I'm sponsoring them more than maybe they're sponsoring me, but look, they're doing a very similar thing to what you're doing with taking care of our veterans. They put together care packages and send care packages to our troops overseas.
Outstanding.
Socks and Cookies is an amazing organization, and Shannon Modisette, who runs that program, she's based out of Arkansas, and we communicate regularly. I've helped her with the Kick and Bass for Troops kayak trail that's taking place and those events and getting that set up, and just a team of people committed to doing great things for the community.
That's awesome.
So I got them, and then I'm on board with Swagger Tungsten out of Minnesota. Swagger, that product is something that got in front of me a few years back, and it's just been something that it's the only weight that I have in my box. I've been really happy with the product. I've been really happy with the deliverables, the options that they bring to the table. Phenomenal organization, a small pro staff base. They're not the size pro staff that you find with a Woo or a Titan or something like that. I think there's only 200 people nationwide on the pro staff for Swagger. So
that's big.
It's a good community, a great group of guys, and just everybody's trying to make it in the industry, right? And then I don't want to forget Chase Baits USA. Buddy Praws over there reached out to me at the beginning of this year and asked me to come on the Chase Baits staff. That's been an interesting adventure and journey. If you look through some of my old social media, you'll see me traveling around with Chase Baits kayak on my trailer, and that's because my co-traveler that runs with me to a lot of these national events, Dan Kraspinski, he's been on Chase Baits staff for, I want to say, probably the last 2 years. And
he's new canoe as well, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah, because that's I noticed that Unlimited on your social channel. I'm like, hey, look at there.
Oh yeah. So that new canoe has seen a lot of miles, and it's been wrapped in the Chase Baits in the chase-based wrap for a while, and it's been good. We love running around the country. They make a great product, very flexible. They've been very accommodating. Just trying to help them build their base in the U.S. They make some really unique products. I really love their paddle tails and some of their glide baits that they make.
Nice.
My buddy Dan loves their craw. I can't remember the name of it off the top. He really loves their craw. It got him a second place at Fork in the inaugural season of Bassmaster.
Good stuff.
Just a lot of history, a lot of great people there. And I always feel like I'm forgetting somebody. I don't know. It happens all the time.
Yeah, no problem. And that's the beauty of, the recorded stuff. If we forget one, we'll come back and we'll throw it in there later, and we'll throw in. So that's, and like we've talked, man, without that support system, the having the, folks getting a chance to get to know you, know who you are at your core, and how you're going to represent out there. We just can't, you can't chase this dream anymore without that, whether that comes in the form of a discount, whether that comes in the form of some baits, or whether that's a financial, boost to help, ease some of the cost to get you down the road, whatever it may be. It's so critical. And then of course, our support structure of our families giving us the room to do this, and chase this stuff. That is a big part of that, for sure. So
there's something about you look through social media and people talk about pro staff versus sponsors versus discounts versus, paid deals and whatnot. Look, any company or organization that is willing to take time out of their day to invest in me helps me, even if it's only a little bit, helps me further my career. It gives me an opportunity space, whether that's to buy more equipment, to invest more time into the sport, or just to put the right things in my hands. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to each and every one of those organizations. And if the partnership concludes because we go our different ways, that's part of the business. But I have the utmost respect for those brands and what they bring to the table. And there's a reason why I work with them.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, that's the thing. It's so easy to, to kind of sit back and armchair quarterback things. But until you're in that space, till you're in the, the thick of the weeds, everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own set of needs. And hey, man, what if there's an agreeable, piece that can be found between those two parties? Who in the hell are we to say otherwise? And somebody else's, whatever works for them is if they're out fishing and they're out competing and they're, living and doing something that they, perhaps normally wouldn't. That's at the end of the day, that's really what this is all about. I don't care if it's in a boat or a kayak or whatever, but
I completely agree with you there. Completely agree.
So we've got bass as the primary circuit we're chasing, doing a little dipping into the Hobie. Have you, I'm going to throw it out there to you because this is a group of guys that I've had an opportunity to meet just because of the neck of the woods that they're based out of that I'm really enjoying. And we've got a few more events that we're going to be doing with them this year. The All-American Kayak Series. Have you seen any of that stuff?
I have.
Yeah.
Short the travel distance because basically I'm looking at a 12-hour minimum travel commitment.
To get to Missouri, yeah.
Yeah, 12-hour travel commitment for any one of those events. It's a little bit hard to factor that in right now.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that develop further. I'd like to see that come, expand a little bit more and kind of see how that takes shape. I'm not opposed to the opportunity space. Trust me, if I can get myself out there and compete, and I would love to.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've fished one of their events at Truman. I love the Ozark waters, kick my butt every time I go to them, but I absolutely love that section of the country. I love the people down there. Everybody's so stinking friendly and angler friendly. They get it, man. They know, everybody, down there, a bass boat with a wrap is pretty common. Out here, you see a bass boat with a wrap means someone's lost, here in Colorado. They made the wrong term at Albuquerque there, so to speak. But yeah, so it's we went to Truman there and had a chance to meet their tournament director, Joshua Booth, and the guy that, one of the things I took away from this, where it was some good confidence, is that I had never really fished this section of Truman, but the one area that I eyeballed and I launched from and I went up and got into, there was only one other guy there in this area of Truman. And he and I shared this space for the day. I basically made sure it was kind of like a big bowl, if you will. Yep. It was a old gravel pit. And I made sure to stay on the other side of the moon from him. I give him that much space as I jumped in and started, running the outside. Well, we get done by the day, and I can tell it's about noon or so. I'm, like I said, I'm a hot dumpster fire over there for whatever reason. And I can tell dude's boating fish, though, going right back over top of the same stuff I'm fishing and vice versa. And I yell over to him, "Hey man, you got a shot at this?" And he's like, "I think I'm in the lead by about 3 inches right now." I'm like, "I'll tell you what, I'm getting out of here." So I just gave him his space. The guy won the place, and so I took that, hey, the only two guys to come in and fish here are the guy that won it, and then, my dumb butt. But at least, we were gauging, and, our execution was our problem at that point. It wasn't anything else. The fish knowledge was there. I felt good about the area that we had found, and got into. So it's a great group of guys. And yeah, the Ozark seems to be the kind of the central hub. They are going up to La Crosse, which I'm super excited. I spent 10 years in Minnesota, and La Crosse. Yeah, La Crosse is, I've shared the water with a bunch of kayak guys up there back in my boat days. So I was so jealous of the areas they could get into in those backwaters that I could not take my boat into. And so I'm looking forward to that. That should be a lot of fun. But
the first time I ever went to La Crosse, I caught over 100 fish on my first tournament day on La Crosse. It's incredible. And the thing is, I finished like 25th or 26th in the event. I had fished for days, but I couldn't time.
Yeah, that place will do it to you every now and again, especially pool 8. There's times where it boils up there. You can damn near walk across them, but you just give anything for a 3.5 pounder, in there. So where are you? Well, listen, Josh, this has been awesome talking fishing with you, learning about you. I can guarantee you have a fan for life. Now, we are going to be following you and throwing out the updates. For those folks out there, we'll be throwing up all of the social channels here. Real Deal Fishing, man. This is you want to start following this guy. And you're going to learn about fishing. You're going to have an awesome time watching the cool photos coming down out there. And again, thank you so very much for everything that you and your entire family have done for this country and to allow us to go out and do these kind of things. We're eternally grateful. And man, this is hopefully we can make this a kind of a common thing where we catch up with you and just see how, throughout the season, see how things go. And you say you have 1, maybe 2 events left?
I definitely have Pickwick. I have to go back and defend my title on Pickwick for the Bassmaster circuit. And then I got to figure out what the details are for the KBF National Championship. Due to COVID, I didn't get into it. Well, I was qualified, but the COVID mess has had things kind of dorked up. So I might have the KBF National Championship on my radar this year. That's
awesome. That is awesome. We are definitely going to be following along with that and watching from there. And for a Hobie, if you're paying attention, you need this guy in the team. I think that's kind of a given. That's at least in my opinion, that's an absolute must. Like I said, you're a mobile commercial for them. And dude, when you get a motor, just know I'm tipping one back for you at that point. And I'm finally celebrating for your legs to take a break.
You can't tell from the video, but I threw my back out yesterday.
Oh no.
Messing with a shovel out in the yard, digging a trench for some work that we're doing here around the house. And I've been hobbling around the house all day today. And yesterday, I had to go to the doctor this morning and get meds. And I'm supposed to be on you follow this weekend for Kayak Fishing League 7. I'll be ready. I'll be there.
My gracious!
Next couple days.
Yeah, see, when things get in the way of fishing, bad things happen. That's what I'm taking from that whole thing. All right, man. Listen, thank you again so very much. We are very honored to have you here, and just know you're welcome here anytime. Anything we can do to help you, consider us an asset and a resource. We're here to help out in any way we can.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. This has been a great experience. And keep doing what you do. I love it.
Will do. All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll have some more updates here on the True Patriot Outfitters podcast. Tight lines. Be safe.